It's Thursday, May 17th, 2018, and this is Colorado Sports Talk. And we're just going to talk about the Denver Broncos right now. Now, I guess today they they talked about the Broncos Ring of Fame, and they said they're not going to elect anybody into the Ring of Fame this year. The 6-person committee said, we're not going to put anybody else in there because it's too full. It's like it's too many good Denver Broncos. We can't. It's full. We've been putting people in for like 6 straight years, but it's full. You have to wait till next year. It'll still be just as full, but it'll be 1 year where it won't get fuller. It's stupid. But whatever. I don't get to make the decisions. But if I did, who would I put in the Denver Broncos Ring of Fame this year if it was my decision? And the first name that came to mind was Bobby Humphrey. Oh, how many of you remember Bobby Humphrey? How many of you remember the guy that would get you 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards every single time? He wasn't fast, he wasn't powerful, but he would always get you 4 yards. Bobby Humphrey is one of those guys. It's like I said, yeah, Bobby Humphrey, he was awesome. He played for us for 4 years. And then I went and I looked up his stats. He only played for us for 2 years and 4 games. He didn't play for us for 4 years. He only played in the NFL for 4 years. One of those years was with the Dolphins. So yeah, it was... I don't know why I remember this guy so... I put him up, I guess, on a pedestal that he doesn't belong on. So I looked at his stats. I'm going to make a case for this guy anyway. Let me look at his stats. I'm sure they're spectacular for the 2 years that he did play for us. Well, he put up 2,386 yards and scored 14 touchdowns. I think Terrell Davis put up 14 touchdowns in a season by itself. This guy, it took him 2 years to do it. 2 years, 14 touchdowns. You know what he averaged? 4 yards a carry, like we thought. Decent receiving back for us, 46 catches out of the backfield for 308 yards. So he was a decent receiving back. Miami, he was really used as a receiving back. They threw him the ball 75 times and he got 54 catches. So he was very well utilized in that field. So I'm sitting there going, I thought much more highly of Bobby Humphrey than I should have. Does Bobby Humphrey deserve to be in the Ring of Fame? No. 2 years, 2,000-yard seasons. I get it. He had 1,151 yards and 7 touchdowns in 89. He had 1,202 yards with 7 touchdowns in 90. And then he only played 4 games for us in 91, where he had 11 carries for 33 yards. No touchdowns. So, I don't know why I remember Bobby Humphrey so fondly, why I think that he was such a great running back for us for a longer amount of time than he was. He was still a good, solid running back for 2 years for us, but not the 4 that I put in my head. He played in the NFL for 4 years, and he did play for us for 3 years, but he only played 4 games in his final season with us, and he only had 11 carries. I think he was having problems with Shanahan. There was like contract disputes or something, or it just wasn't. I don't know. I don't know how you take a running back that was, doing what he was doing and get rid of him. I mean, maybe it was Shanahan in his early years got here and didn't really want to utilize Humphrey. So I had to kind of scrap that because he doesn't deserve to be in the Ring of Fame. Good 2 years, but that's not enough to get in the Ring of Fame. So then the next guy I'm going to try to make a case for is Jake the Snake Plummer. And if they do a bust, I don't know if they do a bust, but he's got to have the porn stash. Jake the Snake Plummer was cool with and there are people that still have those Jake Plummer shirts where it's got him with the cool mustache. He's got to have that when he goes into the Ring of Fame. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, he only played 4 years for us. Yeah, look what he did in those 4 years. It's like what was his record? He had a pretty good record with us. His record was 39-15 with us. He won more than twice as many games as he lost. He threw for over 11,000 yards in 4 seasons with us. Almost 12,000 yards. So he was slinging it. And that's when we were always trying to run the football. We weren't letting Jake just air it out. We were a primarily running football team because we still had Shanahan doing the West Coast offense run to set up the pass. He threw 71 touchdown passes and 41 interceptions. But Jake Plummer was fun to watch while he was here. Now, I'll bring up somebody else. Now, you sit there and go, well, those numbers aren't that great. So why would you put him in the Ring of Fame? Let's go look at Craig Morton's numbers. Craig Morton is in the Ring of Fame. He played 6 years with the Denver Broncos and threw for almost 12,000 yards. His record with us was 41-23. I think that's back in a time when they only played 14 games in a season. And he threw 74 touchdowns, which is slightly more, but he had 2 more years. And he also threw 65 interceptions. And he's a Denver Bronco Ring of Famer. Now, I get it. I think he went to that. I think he was there for the 77 Super Bowl. I think he was our quarterback in the 77 Super Bowl. If I'm remembering the year right. I think we were in that 77 Super Bowl, and he was our quarterback. So, of course, first time we got to the Super Bowl, a lot of those guys are going to be remembered a lot more fondly. But I'm not so sure that if Craig Morton was, those are basically Jay Cutler's numbers. You're going to put Jay Cutler in? I don't think Jay Cutler has good numbers. I'm not looking up his numbers. But he had pretty good numbers for the Broncos. But he didn't get to spend a lot of time here. But Jake Plummer was awesome. Jake Plummer was fun to watch. He was, he was a character. And I think that at kind of that dead zone in between Elway and Peyton Manning, Jake Plummer was still a lot of fun. Games were entertaining, and he won twice as many games as he lost. So he did pretty well for us. He had a pretty good winning percentage. He won 55% of his games or almost 60%, 59.1. So to me, he did very well here for us, and I would like to see him get in the Ring of Fame. I think we kind of did him a little bit wrong when we brought in Jay Cutler, because at the time, nobody was really expecting us to draft a quarterback. I thought Jake Plummer was going to be our quarterback for a couple more seasons. And then Shanahan brought in Cutler, and Plummer didn't really want to compete with a kid, and and Plummer had made a good amount of money. So Plummer kind of bowed out. I think Tampa Bay was really pursuing him. John Gruden really wanted him badly, but he was done. He retired from Denver, and he's never went back, and he stuck to his guns, and I'm proud of the guy. I liked him. I think he should be a Ring of Famer. My next guy that I'm gonna point out, Bill Romanowski. Now, I know there's a lot of controversy about Bill Romanowski and his attitude, but he was instrumental in those Super Bowl years. He was a veteran. He was a leader of those players, and he played hard on every play. You never could say Bill Romanowski took a play off. And he was a very intelligent player also. I think he was the field general. He was the guy that would call the plays. He was basically our Ray Lewis. Just, maybe Ray Lewis has just a little bit more class than Romanowski, but Romanowski was still a stud for us for a while. And the numbers he put up his best numbers with the Broncos. He had 11 interceptions as a middle linebacker, and even scored a touchdown on one of those. And for us, he had his most sacks. And remember, this is a middle linebacker. He's not a guy who's a rusher, a pass rusher. He's just usually a guy who's going to be a run stopper and is trying to set up your defense. He had 23 sacks for us in the 6 years he was here. So he was effective. He had 339 tackles. And of those 339 tackles, he also had 94 assists. So over a third of his tackles were with us. And he had more than half of his assists were with us. he was an amazing player, and he was a pivotal player on those Super Bowl years. Now I get it. He was a little bit of a controversial figure when he spit in J.J. Stokes' face. That was classless, and he had a couple of those moments in his life. But I still think he was instrumental to us winning those. And if you just take what he did football-wise, not necessarily the extracurricular stuff, he was a great football player, and he was on that team for a reason. He really was a leader of those men in the locker room. He was intense, and he kept the intensity up on the field. So I kind of give a nod to that guy just for that. The defense was really good, and I think he put a lot of guys in places to succeed by having them in the right positions. And I don't know if Alfred Williams and Neil Smith and Keith Traylor and Mobley and Atwater, I think all of those guys would probably say that, Romanowski played an important part. Now, the other guy we're going to talk about just real quick, this one's also another controversial one, Lyle Alzado. I looked at Lyle Alzado's numbers. Now, they did not keep the sack stat as an official stat until 1982. There were still places that would keep track of them. Now, it says in here that he has 112 and a half sacks over his career. Well, he played most of his career before 82. In fact, his Denver Bronco career went 71 to 78. Not a single year in there. He had 3 years in Cleveland in between Denver and Oakland, where he still had about 24 and a half sacks, something like that. Excuse me. But he had 47 and a half sacks with Cleveland and Oakland. He had 65 sacks in his 8 years in Denver. He put up some numbers. Now, there's not a lot of numbers on here like supporting his tackles, but he was a part of that Orange Crush defense that got us to the Super Bowl. It wasn't the offense that got us to the Super Bowl in 77. It was that Orange Crush defense. Those guys were studs. The offense just was there. Basically, Craig Morton was our Trent Dilfer. Don't make a lot of mistakes. Don't do a lot of stupid things. Just let's run the ball. Let's just get there. And let the defense handle all the hard work. And the defense did. That Orange Crush defense was spectacular back in the day, and very reminiscent of the great defense that we had a few years ago in Super Bowl 50 that won the Super Bowl with Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware and all those guys, and Talib and Harris, and there's some great players there too. But for me, I know Lyle Alzado had the steroids problem. So there's a lot of people that would say, well, maybe he shouldn't get in just because of that. I don't know if he ever tested positive for steroids while he was with Denver, but that's kind of a controversial thing. But for me, I'm not big. I don't know. Steroids to me isn't a big deal. They're illegal, so you shouldn't do them. But I don't really think they do as much as everybody wants to think they do. You still have to have talent. If you don't have the talent to do that, I think it might enhance the talent a little bit, but if you don't have the talent, you can't just take steroids. If I'm 18 years old and I start taking steroids, I'm not going to the NFL. I still don't have the talent. I may get stronger, but I'm not, the strongest guys in the world don't necessarily make the NFL. The fastest guys, you still have to have talent to be able to play the game. Alzado had talent, and he could play the game. And he gave Denver 8 good years. So I would put him in the Ring of Fame. I know there's controversy around that, but the man has passed on. I think there's a lot more to his legacy than just steroids. Even though he did kind of die. They say that the steroids kind of contributed to the weakening, to his death, which is sad. But I would put Alzado in. I know there might be other people that would scream no way. But there are a couple of controversial ones on this list. Alzado and definitely Romanowski. Humphrey would have been, but I can't support him. Jake Plummer's fun. Put him in. And with all that being said, to the troops, past, present, and future, thanks for the freedom.